Welcome, everyone. Today is an incredibly exciting day. The Lodgge and Nordicity have teamed up to bring you a brand new video series, Nordicity Recaps. Just as the name implies, Nordicity Recaps will be recapping some of the biggest video game events to happen around the globe, and managing partner and CEO Christian Roberts will be hosting a live panel to discuss with renowned industry veterans some of the common trends and themes that we found during the event. We will be hosting all of these live right here on twitch.tv/The Lodgge and uploading them later on youtube.com and podcast services around the globe. Make sure to follow The Lodgge and Nordicity on Twitter and visit both of our respective websites to find out a little bit more about what each company has to offer. The first event today is going to be talking about Pocket Gamer Connects Toronto. So, without further ado, Christian, take it away.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural Nordicity Recap. In this series of hopefully interesting videos, we'll take a look back at recent video game industry events. This is a joint operation between Interactive Ontario and Nordicity and is being hosted on The Lodgge with 2Gs, which was built to celebrate Ontario-based studios and the games they developed. In this case, we'll recap Pocket Gamer Connects Toronto, or PGCT, because who doesn't love a good acronym? What happened? What were the themes, and how many times did I lose at ping pong? But before I tell that story, I need to tell you this story. My name's Christian and I run a consulting firm. This consulting firm. It's called Nordicity and we think deep thoughts about all things creative and artistic. You may remember us from this data or our contributions to this report. Me, I focus on games. I've been doing so for the last 15 years. Not that that makes me feel old or anything. Back to business. At PGCT, we saw three main themes. Warning, the following views and or opinions are Christians and do not necessarily represent anyone else living, dead, or otherwise. Theme 1, mergers and acquisitions. As the global economy lurches towards a likely recession amid high rising interest rates and somewhat less cheap money, there was a lot of talk about M&As. The consensus seemed to be that while the bonanza of investment seen in the early pandemic is past, there is still a window for investments to be made. In many cases, strategic investors are looking to acquire talent via M&A, which makes sense because we're still in the middle of a talent shortage. At the same time, there seems to be an increasing interest in investors taking minority stakes in companies. These stakes let them have a say in the strategic direction without having to fully commit to the relationship. How risque. Some of those deals come with call options that enable investors to consummate the union over a 3 to 5 year period, an eternity in the games industry. For those unfamiliar with the term, a call option is essentially when a buyer sets a price for something they may or may not buy in the future. In this case, shares of a games company. All in all, expect cash to be ever more precious over the course of the next couple months. Theme 2, the rise, fall, and tumble of crypto. Okay, time for another disclaimer. I'm inherently skeptical when it comes to the application of new technologies in games, and crypto is no exception. Fortunately for my narrative, PGCT occurred in the middle of a significant decline of the value of many cryptocurrencies and NFTs. While there seem to be some solid use cases for digital wallets in games like taking currencies from one game to another, the overall sentiment is that the level of consumer demand for many crypto tools is as of yet unclear. In other words, we might still be in the hammer looking for nails stage of technology development. Theme 3, market trends. Okay, this isn't technically a theme, but we'll go with it anyways. In a really handy summary for people like me taking notes, one session asked investors what they wanted to invest in. When it comes to mobile games, investors seem to be reasonably bullish. Free-to-play mechanics and limited upfront investments seem to keep this market on their respective radars. Console games, and to a slightly lesser extent PC games, are also attractive. On the other hand, there isn't much interest in investing in XR studios, not that that's surprising. There is also some wariness in terms of investing in business models that rely too heavily on ad revenue, noting that user acquisition is now harder than it used to be, and that Apple's new policies are making it harder to target ads. There was also some trepidation regarding subscription models now that the main storefronts have filled up their respective lineups. Who will continue to pay $60 for a game that you can get on Game Pass? This guy, that's who. Irrespective of the trends, the future will be bright as Gen Z grows up, cuts their hair, gets real jobs, and then will continue to spend more money on games. Those are the themes that jumped out at us. Now you might be thinking, but Christian, what about this topic that I thought was the most interesting thing ever that happened at PGCT? Well, those are important too, but I'm the games economics guy, so this is what patented my lens. So concludes the first Nordicity recap. Remember to head over to the Lodge, with 2 Gs, to learn more about the games industry in Ontario. They have some great content, including on upcoming Nordicity recaps, so that's great. Next up, Gamescom in Germany.
Well, that's our video. And now let's welcome some couple of Ontario-based games folks who actually went to the conference to Pocket Gamer Connects Toronto to the stream. We've got Jamie Steele, the communications manager at Eastside Games, and Rob Segal, systems director at Get Set Games. Thanks so much both for joining. I think the video did a pretty good job of introducing me, but why don't we start by having the two of you introduce yourselves and your companies and what you're up to. So I don't know, Jamie, why don't you go first?
Sure. So I am the communications manager at Eastside Games. Just a little. This is my daughter Lucy, who has decided not to cooperate. A little bit about Eastside Games. So we started in 2011 as an indie game studio based in East Vancouver. Today we are part of Eastside Games Group, which is a publicly traded company on the TSX. We're a developer, a publisher, and a technology provider. Our mission, just to get a little bit corporate, our mission is to enable creators to successfully deliver memorable mobile gaming experiences that players engage with every day. So we use our tech kits and our brand partnerships that we develop to empower really passionate fan bases to continue to explore their favorite franchises in a mobile game space. So another thing that I really want to mention is that at Eastside Games, and I say this as someone who is fairly new to the games industry, everyone at Eastside Games is a fan first. So we are making games that we want to play with partners that we love, which I think makes it even more fun for us. And yeah, a little bit, I guess, to wrap that up, we've grown since 2011 to about 200, a little more than 200 employees. Like I said, we started in Vancouver. We have a growing presence here in Ontario, which I love. And we actually have people almost in every province and territory across Canada. We're missing a couple. And then we also have folks in the States and even some other people beyond North America. So that's a little really quick summary.
Well, thanks so much. That's it's quite the growth story. Rob, you're up.
Cool, thanks. So yeah, I'm Rob Segal, one of the co-founders of Get Set Games. We've been around since 2009. We started out making games on mobile, mainly for iOS, and then kind of eventually moved over a little bit into Android. So we had some pretty good successes between 2009 and 2014, probably on mobile. Our biggest titles were Mega Jump and Mega Run, which collectively have around 7 million downloads, which is great, which sounds great and is very good. But more recently, we've moved away from mobile quite a bit, just because it's turned out that the games that tend to be popular on mobile are not the games that we want to make as developers and also as players. So we're generally more focused on the PC console space now, although we have worked with a number of different partners over the years in mobile and kind of has led to where we are now as a company. So we've done projects with Adult Swim, we've done projects with Gearbox, Disney and Pixar, and more recently we're working on a VR project and also possibly soon a PC console project. So it's kind of just like high level, a bit about what we've done and where we're at.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thanks so much. So this is we're recapping a conference, Pocket Gamer Connects Toronto. So I think the most obvious question is, well, why did you go to the conference, and what was your objective? What was the goal? And I guess, did you accomplish that goal? How did it go? So why don't, Rob, you keep the mic for now, and yeah, tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. I mean, for me, I guess, like, firstly, it was really a situation of convenience. The conference is like a 5-minute walk from my office, so that was pretty convenient. And I mean, in terms of the goals for any conference, generally what I like to do is just meet people in general. I kind of don't care particularly what area they're in, because generally there's always someone interesting to meet and chat with. So that tends to be a lot of like what my goal is. I generally don't like going to the sessions because just of my nature, if I sit down in any kind of lecture setting, as was the case for me in university, for like more than like 20 minutes, half an hour, I'm asleep. So it really doesn't suit my brain power well at all. So yeah, I would say the main thing for me was meeting people, and yeah, it was great. I did meet a lot of people, some new folks and some old folks, which is always great.
And was this the first conference out of the pandemic for you? So, or was there just one before?
No, I went to GDC, was it this year, and also last year. I can't remember if last year they had it. Maybe it was just this year. I'm forgetting, but the year that they kind of came back in person, yeah, I went to that, and I also went to, for the first time, PAX East in Boston.
I just wonder if I was just wondering if you know, the impetus to get out and meet people is even stronger now than it was before.
I think so. Yeah, I feel like really people are like really coming back in droves. Like PAX East was quite busy, so I think people are really eager to get back out and mingle.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Jamie. Wonder if you could speak to why Eastside Games was at the conference. I saw you guys had a booth. There's a reasonably big presence. So what was the intention?
Sure. So Eastside Games wanted to go because like I said, we started in Vancouver, and we are people are starting to know, and they do know who we are, but they don't necessarily know that we're in Ontario. So even while we were there, we had people coming up saying, "Oh, I didn't expect you here because you're a Vancouver company." So it was really important for us to get out there and to let people know that while we started out west, we are growing, and we do have a much higher presence here in Ontario than we did before. So we wanted to go to Pocket Gamer Connects in Toronto to really get to know our peers from the Ontario gaming scene, and connect with them and let them know that we're not just in Vancouver. We are here. We're all over, really. And part of that, just expanding on that a little bit, is that we are growing. So we are looking for more talent to join our team. And as a remote first company, it's great to see that we're growing in our people from Ontario. So by attending this conference, while we might not, we weren't going there for the purpose of stealing talent. We were going in part for the purpose of getting to know students that are looking for their entry role, or developers who are looking to have
it's all good.
to work with a publisher from the area.
That's
so on a personal note, I did go because I am from Ontario, and like I mentioned before, I am fairly fresh to the gaming scene. So it was a really great chance for me to actually get to know my peers in the industry, to get to know the industry a little bit more, and to connect on that level in person.
No, fair enough. And remote first is the way of the world these days. As you can tell, we're all talking with each other from our homes. So it sounds like it was broadly successful, and all if the primary goal was to get out there and meet people, both to work for Eastside Games, or to just be peers, either both Rob and Jamie. Okay, so I did go to some of those talks, and not that I don't suffer from the same restlessness that Rob was describing. But one of the themes that we saw a lot of in those talks was a lot of talking about investments and mergers and acquisitions, and which is great. I'm an economist by training, so that's something that I like to hear about. But I was just curious if that's something that is that your company's thinking about, or is it part of your reasons to attend such things. So I don't know, Rob, why don't you start here? And is that, investments could be private investments or publisher deals or what have you. Just curious as to if that's something that you and Get are looking for.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's something that I always like to say for like any opportunity. It's not an immediate no. I don't like to say like immediately no like to anything unless it's like a completely like on the opposite side of the spectrum of like something we might like envision for a goal of our company. But I think investment definitely falls into something we would consider. I remember, I remember getting offers for some of like our from some companies. This was like a couple years back, but this was kind of like a pretty immediate no, but still speaks to, I guess, like engaging on the opportunity where someone had offered us like 100K Canadian for one of our games, and that was kind of like no, that's like a hard no for us. It's not really a ton of cash, but it's still good to make the connections, and I think it really helps to be aware of like who's involved in the investment space. That there does always tend to be like new investors popping up of either a completely new company or like how much they may be willing to invest. It's always good to know that, and like who's involved in the investments, who's involved in like behind the money. A lot of that can be the right timing, and it's going to vary over time of like what investors are looking for. So I think it's always good to make the connections, especially because you don't know where people might end up. Someone you're talking to today might end up at another publisher or another investor. Maybe they can be a cheerleader for you at wherever they go next. If something didn't work out, where you currently might be engaging on an opportunity. So I think for investments, I guess I'm tying it back to kind of like the networking and just getting to know peers more. Like I was saying earlier, it really pays to make those connections. Some connection that you might make today may not pay off for a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
It can be worth it.
It's advice I always give to some of my junior colleagues is that, just go make friends. Go make friends with people. You never know where they're going to be in 15 years. I think it's, perhaps another way to ask the question, Rob, is like when you talk to a potential, let's say, investor, of whatever type, what makes them less no than otherwise, other than the dollar amount, which obviously $100,000 for one of your games is hilarious. But are there things that would make them more intriguing, or that you would look for in a potential suitor? Not like be it for a game or for the company or for whatever.
Or something that we would look for from
like if you're it's a deal that has to go both ways, right? So when you're talking, an investor approaches you, like what's good?
I guess this is a fairly obvious one, but making sure that they have kind of the financing behind them, that they have the money to actually be able to pay you. That can vary according to like what your needs are. Like bigger companies may have more money available, but they're probably going to scrutinize your situation a bit more. Whereas like smaller investors may not do that. So that can vary according to like what you want to do. I think finding a partner that really aligns with the vision that you want to have for your company, I think is really important to do. I think there can be a lot of investors who simply just might want to do, say, like an acquisition and then like sell off like your assets, or maybe shift your company or take your company in a direction that you didn't want to do. When you are going to take on an investment, it's very likely that whoever is investing will want to have some kind of say in the direction of your company, so they'll want to have someone who's on your board who has a vote. maybe that's a majority, maybe it's a minority, but that's definitely one of the considerations as well. Is if you bring someone on, are they going to have a controlling interest now in your company? So making sure that you like that person or people certainly is really important.
It's almost like these companies are run by people or something, and they have to actually get along.
Yeah.
All right, Jamie, over to you. Is that something that I'm not sure where East Side Games is in the arc of investment, having either received or looking for? Is this something you can speak to? And if so, I'll ask the same question. What would you look for in a potential suitor beyond? You could I'll just agree with Rob because those are all very sensible things. But anything else that you'd add?
So I think from the ESG standpoint, so we are, like I mentioned, we are part of the East Side Games group, which is publicly traded. So people can invest whenever they want, which is fantastic. But it's leaning more towards the discussion about like partnerships that you were mentioning. I know that as a publisher, we are always looking for developers to partner with. And I think from that standpoint, I would look at that as an investment as well from the developer. So on that note, one of the things that she was listening attentively to Rob and was not making a noise.
Soothing Rob. Rob just.
But on that note, we do look for partners, for true partners in our developers. So it's we look for folks who want to make a game that would make sense for us to get behind. We look for folks who have a clear vision of what they want and are able to back it up to a certain standpoint or a certain point. So we want, I think.
Sorry, guys.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But yeah, so I think the developers, that's a really clear partnership or investment that remains really important to East Side Games. And if anyone has any questions about that, they can hit us up on social media and I can connect them to the right person.
Great. Well, I think one of the I was going to ask, one of the follow-ups I was going to ask you, Jamie, and maybe you can squeeze it in there, is the degree to which, you're publishing activities and you have, but as a sort of an investor, a publisher, as an investor of a sort, does the sort of recession or the sort of increasingly expensive capital and money affect the degree to which you're asking for those sort of, make sure they can back it up kind of bona fides from your potential partners?
So I want to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn, but I know that we have high expectations for our developers. That said, we also have high expectations for ourselves. So we have a kind of a target number of developers that we want to partner with over the next few years. And that number is not shrinking. That number is growing. So I think if there's this recession that you're talking about, our approach is to keep making these partnerships, to keep building these relationships at an increasingly high number, and high in quantity and quality. So I don't know if it really does have, definitely not a negative effect.
No, fair enough. Well, that's a very encouraging news, I think, for those out there that might be looking to partner with East Side or East Side Games or anyone else for that matter. All right. Another of the themes that we brought up in that video that we played earlier is the role of crypto, and we also saw a bunch of talks on crypto-based things from NFTs, cryptocurrencies, wallets, all that sort of thing. I'm continually curious for people who actually make or work with people who make games for a living, as to the role that they play in their companies and in those games, and why they may have invested or not invested their time in those. why don't we switch up a bit, and I'll just ask Rob, is that something that gets at as spent much time with, or and if so, why, or if not, why not?
We haven't spent a huge amount of time with it. I think mainly being that it seems like there's been a lot of pushback in more, I guess, like more of like the hardcore players type scene, or I don't know how you would like categorize it, like maybe like console players or PC, certain like genres of like PC players generally seem to like push against that, and there has certainly been a lot of backlash from players about crypto. I mean, I don't want to ignore it completely. I don't think you can. I mean, the scale of like where things are at and what people are doing, what people are investing in. There's a lot of activity there, and there's certainly a lot of money there. I feel like that's more kind of positioned around like mobile. Like that's more kind of like a feeling like that's. I don't have a lot of kind of data like to back that up, but as I think about like crypto games, most of it, what comes to mind for me is around mobile. So I mean, we're not really pursuing it like too in depth. We're trying to stay focused more on like a premium experience, just on like either PC or console, mainly. So yeah, and are kind of just continue to monitor and see how it develops.
They're in the wait and see mode.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And Jamie, is that how does that play with ESG?
In a very similar way, actually. So we there's so many unknowns when it comes to crypto and gaming. And we fully expect that at some point down the road, someone will they'll crack the code to make it blow up. That's not going to be Eastside Games. That's not our bag. We might follow. We might when the code is cracked, it might be something that we explore. But right now we're focusing on making some successful games that don't rely on crypto or NFTs. So again, it's not a hard no, like Rob mentioned earlier. We're not saying a hard, like definite no or immediate no. It's just something right now that's not something that we are focusing on. We're focusing, like I said, on growing with our partnerships, with the IPs that we're working with and that we will be working with, and making games that are successful without relying on that.
Fair enough. I mean, it's one of these, they're at every conference. So, I think at some point, somebody will come up with a pitch that makes sort of broad sense for everyone. They seem to make sense in their own little spaces, though. I always, this is we're here, talking, about games in Ontario with support for Interactive Ontario. So I'm always sort of curious as to is this? I guess, Rob, to your point, is it the mobile companies perhaps in Ontario or otherwise that are going to more likely crack that code first, or are there's where might you see, like, where could it succeed best in your view?
Like for where crypto games might succeed.
Yeah, I mean, and like what I'm sort of trying to think through the use cases that makes best sense to me. And the only one really that made sense to me, yet is taking your currency from one year's version of a game to the next year's version of a game. Like that I could do, but if I play NHL 2022 and then NHL 2023 and I have the same currency because it's in my wallet and not the thing. But I'm curious as to where that in your mind where that could fit.
Yeah, I think that technology has value, and this is where it gets into a lot of the confusion, which granted I still have a lot of as well, of like what do all these different terms mean? There's like blockchain, NFTs, crypto, and it's like what is actually meant when those terms are like referred to. I think there's a lot of variation in the definition of what those mean. kind of like what you were describing, Christian, at least for what I know, refers more to like blockchain and being able to, have this chain of ownership that you can follow and do it like across games. I think that will start to have more value of, well, I feel like it's kind of everyone wants to own that. Kind of like if I'm, say, like Ubisoft and I want to integrate like this tech, it's like, okay, great, I can do this across my different games and have this like blockchain tech. But I could do that anyway because they're all under the same like Ubisoft umbrella. Where I think it starts to get interesting as like a player is when you start doing that cross publisher or cross platform. But I have a feeling there's going to be quite a battle still between either like platform holders or publishers or a combination of both, where everyone will want to own it. And, I guess someone will do it like the best way, whatever kind of the market sees as like the best implementation. And maybe that will win. And then that will kind of be like who will be like the owner of the success of that particular crypto tech.
Yeah, it seems like VHS versus Betamax times 1,000. So, whoever sets the standard wins. There's going to be 9,999 Betamaxes. Okay. And I guess, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. My sort of last sort of round of questions, and I'm going to give you a fictitious $1 billion that you get to invest anywhere in the games industry in Ontario, and it's in this games ecosystem. The only place you're not allowed to invest in is in your own company, or each other's company, because that's cheating. So almost had a loophole there. So that could be in the game's infrastructure to make all boats rise. Could be in a particular set of companies. Could be in one company for that matter. That's not here. But I don't know, Jamie. Where would you put that billion?
So I have no experience investing billions anywhere. So that's my disclaimer.
To be clear, neither do I.
I think with my understanding, I think if we can somehow invest in just all like game development talent in Ontario, whether that's through like education, so we are making it more accessible to actually learn all the skills that you need for game dev, or if it's somehow in paying wages that compete on the world stage, I think talent is where I'd really like to see the investment. We have without the talent, we don't have the industry that we do, and I think if we want to see Ontario grow, which I think all of us want to see, we need to be able to pay people to do it, and I think. Yeah, so I don't have a specific company or a specific field, other than just we need to bring the talent or grow the talent here.
No, that's a perfectly fair answer, and I think you said something really telling earlier when you said, I'm here to hire people. Oh wait, but I'm not going to poach from your companies, which of course is this sort of implication there that there is this kind of fixed pool of talent that if you try to hire somebody, it's going to come from somebody else's dev team or if they're not a student. So yeah.
Just on that note, really quick, I think one of the things that we do really need to look at is that there are so many people in Ontario, and yes, the Ontario developers and Ontario companies have a lot of the talent already, but there are also people in the rural and the remote communities that don't even have access to join this. So I think part of that investment could go to somehow improving access to those people who aren't already in it. Maybe they don't even think that they could be in it. I know that one of our co-founders I'm so sorry.
Don't worry. No, all good.
He grew up thinking he didn't have a chance to be in game dev. That was never even on his radar. So he spent 15 years of his life working in hospitality and working great important jobs before even knowing that he could go into this because of where he grew up. So part of what we want to do is just more accessible for everyone. I'll wrap up.
No, fair enough. And I think I'll just echo that point. I mean, we, Nordicity's been had an opportunity a couple of times to work in northern remote communities, and exactly to your point, Jamie, the idea that this is a possible career path for people that who immediately think either be it hospitality or working in forestry or the mines or or whatever it happens to be, like that's just what you do when you graduate. You go and you work in the lumber mill or what have you. So oftentimes that could be investment in things like Minecraft clubs, or just to get the idea of building games and coding and so forth into people's minds. That sort of possibility of potential success. I think that's a super good point. And the other point I think you alluded to there, which I'm going to try to echo, so you can hear it loud and clear, is the need for basic sort of high-speed connectivity in some of these remote communities. This is great. Okay, yeah, I want to be a game. Yes, I want to make games for a living. I want to be a game dev. Okay, I can't communicate with the rest of the world with the speed and alacrity that is necessary for the movement of large piles of information, which is often required for working remotely. Hello. Our one such future budding game dev, no doubt. All right, Rob, $1 billion. Let's spend it.
I was leaning towards a lot of. I think I can only really endorse what Jamie has already said. Investing it in the people, making sure that people are getting paid a wage that's competitive with other folks in the industry. It certainly can be a challenge for the people in Ontario being close to the US, where salaries can often be higher for certain roles. Matching that I think goes a long way. I think the talent is here, really. Lots of talented people in Ontario. So yeah, anything we can do to just keep them here, offering more training, more education. I think also for we've had enticing people also from other countries to come when possible. Whether that's, I know there are some subsidies for that and programs for that, and certainly we've done that. There's a few government programs where we take advantage of that, which is great. So I think more of that. But there is certainly still a lot of rules. Maybe not a lot, but I want to say just from experience, there are certain rules that we have hired for, and they just don't exist with the type of experience that we want for our team. What we're looking for, it's only been available from other countries. So
growing the talent pool, making sure we can pay competitive wages. And I think we've talked about remote first studios a bunch here, and I would imagine, just building on your point, Rob, that you're not only competing with the states in terms of people moving or something, but you're now you can work for large multinational corporations, and you don't have to get up off your couch. So I can only imagine that might make things harder. I mean, I'm just curious if that's if you've if that's something that you've seen happen, given the increasing the ever increasing competition for talent. Sort of I don't know, the apocryphal tale of the person who goes to work for Amazon for an extra zero on their paycheck. Is that something you've witnessed or heard, either in your company or what companies you know of?
Yeah. I think there's a fair amount of turnover. I think it does level the opportunities across for big and small companies. And I mean, I think that's good. And I think where it's allowing certainly smaller companies to kind of shine and stand out is I feel like it makes money less of a factor, and it becomes more about people finding the company that they want to work with that has a shared set of values. And I think this has come up quite a bit. I mean, not to sidetrack onto a completely separate topic, which very well I could, but just to point out that there is a lot of controversy in the industry, and where people are not being respected and having their voice be heard internally at their company. And understandably, people don't like that. And they're going to look elsewhere for work, and it's very easy to do that now in the current landscape. So
It's almost
I
I
think
more to account, right? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of like hard training that more so on the like leadership and management of a lot of these companies should do to hold on to their talent.
So not only you have to attract them, you have to keep them. And I like to, like when we talk about labor markets, I like to think that there's three things that'll keep somebody in a company. There's money, there's working on cool projects, and there's the company itself. And so you've both led in your introductions with we like to work, we like to build games that we like to play and build. So it seems like you got cool projects. And there's your second point, Rob. It has to be a company that's worthwhile, worthwhile to work with. So I think that's a super good point. And I think Jamie, you echoed it earlier in your description of ESG. Anything you'd add to what Rob's saying, Jamie?
I'll just say I agree with the company itself being a major part of what keeps talent. So just speaking personally, it's a little bit of a plug, but I'll keep it brief. At Eastside Games, I've been welcomed in with a screaming baby. And that's something that I don't think many companies that I've worked for or around previously would do. So I think if companies in games are able to create an environment where their people feel respected and feel welcome as their authentic selves, I think that is really high up on the priority list, especially now when people do have freedom to work for a company based anywhere.
Fair enough. I think that's all super good points. Okay, last thing before we start to turn to some questions. So I talked about investments and mergers and acquisitions and crypto but is there anything else from Pocket Gamer Connects Toronto? Any themes or observations that you'd make that I haven't touched on that you thought were super important? It was like, Christian, why aren't you talking about this thing? It was the clear theme of the conference. I don't know, Rob, did that roughly match your experience wandering around looking at the signs of docs?
Yeah, I can't think of anything really too much more that stood out. I think we had a pretty good capture of some major themes. Yeah.
And Jamie, how about you? Does that seem to sum it all up?
Yeah, I think that summed most of it up. I think one of the, unofficial kind of themes for me was just the actual connection, how much people enjoyed meeting face to face again, and meeting their peers in that kind of environment, even if it wasn't during one of the talks, just like wandering around, grabbing like a bite from someone's table, or just having a seat and chatting with a random person that was walking by. That seemed like a big part of it for me. And that part of it is what is going to bring me back to a future conference for sure.
I agree. I think that's been the theme of, one of the theme of this conversation quite clearly has been around people and the importance of, treating people like people. Because guess what? They're people. And sometimes we do like to be in the same space as each other, even though we're of course talking to each other all from various different parts of Eastern Canada. So I think so. Now I'm just going to, it's shameless plug time. If you're, what should people out there be looking for from Eastside Games first, and then we'll go to Get Set afterwards. So what Mike's yours. Plug it away.
Awesome. So people should be looking out for a few of our titles that are coming out this year. So we have Star Trek Lower Decks. That mobile game is currently available in Canada, based on the successful TV show. So that is currently available in Canada. It's going to be worldwide later this year. We also have our Doctor Who game that will be worldwide later this year as well. So those are the two really, really exciting titles that we're just dying to launch. Beyond that, people can keep an eye out for any announcements about partnerships that we may or may not be working on, and the games that result from those. As a communications manager, that's what's getting me up in the morning, is knowing that we get to announce some big partnerships and some big games. So that's, unfortunately, I can't say too much about that, but people can pay attention to our social media. I think they've been mentioned in the chat here on the stream. And yeah, just watch out for that.
Big news coming, I'm sure.
Exactly.
And I'll be downloading Lower Deck shortly, because
oh my goodness, so much fun.
I am indeed a good nerd, and I like all my Star Trek. So thanks so much, Rob. Over to you. Plug away. What should we be looking for from Get Set?
So I mean, we don't have anything out kind of like recently that I could kind of like speak to. Most of the titles that we do have out that folks could get, we haven't updated for quite some time. So I'm not going to suggest any of those. And then any of the projects that we currently have in the works, I can't talk about. So I'm not going to mention those. But I'm going to make a special note to say how much I appreciated Jamie's perseverance on this call through her setup.
You and I both, and
very impressive.
Before we go to questions, I'm just going to echo Rob that that was some quality use of the mic, of the mute button, getting in like between breaths. It was impressive. I'm as a dad, I can only empathize. All right, so I guess we'll spend a few minutes on time for a few questions. Let's have a look. So I guess one question is that we have here is that what would you like to see differently, or how would you like to see Pocket Gamer Connects Toronto evolve next year, perhaps to be even more sociable than it was this year? Is there anything that you would I wouldn't hesitate to say improve upon, but just add to the experience? I don't know, Rob, why don't you go?
So I've been looking for a conference to do this like speed dating kind of like setup that Collision Conference did, I think last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, where it was like a speed dating style thing. I mean, I guess more kind of like strict, and that you got placed on like a random call with someone, and the call was like 4 minutes, and then once the 4 minutes was done, it just cut it off and like transferred you to a new person. So that was like there was no like, hey, like see you later. It was just like, you're done. 4 minutes. We on to like someone else. So I found that kind of pretty entertaining, but also had some like really good talks with folks. Got to meet a nice like diverse set of people.
It's almost like forcible sociability. You have to move through it really quickly. It sort of amplifies the reason you went in the first place.
Yeah, so I like that. I haven't seen like any conference like really do that. Granted, I know it's a lot harder in person than digitally, but something like that I think would be great.
Speed dating started in person, so I guess there's no reason why they couldn't.
Yeah.
Jamie, what about you? How would you like to see it evolve with the evolution?
I love that idea. Sorry, I love that idea a lot. I think that would be really exciting. It'd be a great way to bring people out of their shells a little bit, because sometimes it's hard. It's intimidating to like request a meeting and do it in a formal kind of fashion. But if you sign up for the speed dating process, I think you're forced into it, and that's where you can build a lot of really important, exciting kind of connections.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That sounds really interesting. I think it's also would be really fascinating if that wasn't like, as it usually is, like, let's speed date the publishers, let's get investors, because it's like then there's like that pressure of I need to pitch myself in 4 minutes, but it was just like people like, okay, right, like, just meet people at high clip and just have to explain who you are. I think that would be really like kind of take the edge off of a little bit of the speed dating, so you don't feel quite so pressured to prove yourself in a 3.5 minute period. I think that's good. But otherwise, sign me up. I'd be there. As somebody who doesn't have either a game to buy or sell, that would be great. Otherwise, I get cut out of speed dating, and I feel sad. All right. Okay. We have another question here about what tech or creative development are you most excited about in the video game industry? And you're not allowed to answer anything with the that might have come up in our $1 billion question. So is there? I mean, I guess. I don't know. I'll go back to Rob just because you mentioned earlier that you're working on you are working on some VR titles. So I don't know if that counts as it, but is that what is the tech or creative development that you think is most exciting these days?
I've actually been really interested in, so a lot of technologies around like Unreal. We use Unreal as like our main tech platform for our games. I've really been fascinated by Unreal 5 and also the MetaHumans project that Epic has. It's super simple to use. So now I don't know if you can hear it's like fire station rest. So apologies for the noise there.
No worries.
I've been experimenting with like myself over the past couple of weeks and just kind of like creating like a MetaHuman, integrating it into Unreal. I love a lot of like what Epic is doing to just make content creation simple. Granted, you tend to kind of need like a higher end PC. Like I have a GTX 1080, which I still consider like a decent card, and Unreal kind of like crushes it. Anything related to MetaHuman stuff. So there's still some like improvements there, but the general workflow mostly like works. Just like it just works. It's pretty simple. You can get stuff up and running. So I love seeing that, and then anything related to like digital production, live production, again related to like Unreal is just
it's super cool.
So much of it is so easy now. It's incredible. I'm really excited to see what they'll come up with. Content-wise.
Particularly as it starts to filter out and the price point of those things starts to come down and it starts to become more accessible to more and more creators, and more cool people get to do more cool things with it. I think that's I think that's a really good one. Jamie, what about you? What about in terms of, could be creative, could be something like a piece of it could be a piece of IP that I know that you're working on, but can't talk about, so that's probably not a good answer. But anyways, what's most exciting to you these days?
So I think the obvious answer for myself is that we, as a company, we are, like I mentioned, we're a tech provider as well. So we are building, and we have built this kind of framework that sits on the engine and helps developers create their product and bring it to market faster. So if people have an idea of what they want to build, if it's an idle game, for example, we have the framework available that we partner with them and as their publisher, and they can use the framework and they can build their game and bring it out to market and do so successfully. So I think that's really exciting for me because it tells me that there will be a growing number of mobile games out there quicker and succeeding sooner because this tech is available to them. So it is a little bit of a plug, but it's something that I am excited about. As a mobile gamer, as someone who really only has time to play games on her phone, it's exciting that I'm going to have more options.
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to your point about accessibility and obviously making it easier to, I think both you and Rob sort of answer, there's a little bit of, broadly speaking, accessibility in both of your answers, right? Making it easier for people to make games, make it easier, make it more approachable. Unreal is still Unreal. but I think that the more people who get to make games, the more fun games we get to play, right? All right, I think we got one more, maybe one or two more, depending on how we go. But again, we're kind of repping Ontario here. So what's your favorite? What's the best thing about working in the video game scene in Ontario? You gotta pick. You don't have to pick one. You can pick a couple of them, I suppose. But yeah, what's the best? So Jamie, why don't you go, just to switch up the order a bit?
Sure. Again, following the theme of the conversation, it really is. It's the people. So I immediately felt welcomed into the games industry here. I felt like even though I didn't have an extensive history in games, as soon as I started, I was welcomed with open arms. And even at like Pocket Gamer Connects Toronto specifically, I was able to make connections with folks like Renee, who was just on the Lodge podcast the other day, whom we have shared experiences and we have kind of a shared outlook. And I think meeting people like Renee, where even though we're at different companies, we're all working for the same goal, to build a stronger industry. And I think that's hands down my favorite part about being here.
Fantastic. Rob, what's the best part about the video game scene in Ontario?
I feel like a lot of it has been this has gotten monumentally better over time, but being able to be able to work in the video game industry is like where I grew up. Like I was born in Toronto, and it's like when I first wanted to get into games, it was like 2000, 2001. And there was not much in like Toronto at that time. It was like one, maybe two studios. And then there was some studios who might be like, say they're in Toronto, but then they're like actually in like Oakville or some like outlying area. It's like, well, okay, sort of. That's not really Toronto, but maybe sort of. So being able to work locally has been that's been like the great thing about like just being in Ontario and being able to work where I grew up.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I'm going to answer this one because though I don't get to work in the industry. The question technically is, what do I love most about the Ontario video game scene? And I'm just going to go with Jamie's answer because I'm still not part of the video game industry, and they still invite me to things, and I get to hang out with people. And my favorite thing is things like this, where I get to interview the cool people doing cool things, and it's just endless. There's endless supply of cool people doing cool things. I couldn't interview them all if I tried. And I think at some point, we were something like 1,000 or 900 companies or something like that, working of various sizes, working on various cool things, and that's always my answer. So I think that's about where we have what we have time for in terms of questions. And I think I will, on behalf of Interactive Ontario and of Nordicity, I'd like to thank you both for taking the time and for talking to us today. And I just can't help but again give Jamie another shout out for for managing, not just managing, but for there's no way I could have a coherent thought, let alone insight into the industry and into your experience and joining the industry with that much much use of the mute button. That's of course not to say, Rob, I'm not impressed by your thoughts either. But for all of you out there, remember to head over to the lodge.com with 2 G's. to learn more about the video game industry in Ontario and even more great companies like Eastside Games and Get Set Games. There's some great content up there about the industry, but also about future Nordicity recaps like this one. So thank you all, and I suppose I will be back on one of these streams with some more video game companies from Ontario after Gamescom in Germany. Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you all.